Ever since Will Murphy died beneath a crumbling cottonwood barn wall last winter, Clara Murphy felt like the wind itself had turned its back on her, pushing her and her 3 boys farther to the edges of a town that once welcomed them with warm bread and neighborly smiles, though now those same neighbors whispered that a ranch without a man was cursed, that the land was drying up because she wasn't strong enough to carry it, that her sons deserved a place where real work and real guidance could shape them into something useful, yet Clara's heart had no quit stitched into it despite every rejection slamming like a gate in a storm. Because she looked at Samuel, her oldest at 16, already wiry and hardened from early mornings and late nights, at Matthew, 12, with a brain always fixing things that weren't even broken, at little Joey, only 7, barefoot and brave enough to chase coyotes away with nothing but a stick and a holler, and she knew she would rather starve on her own soil than be pushed away like a stray dog, though hunger had already begun to chew at their ribs while the bank officer, a man who once brought them Christmas cakes, now avoided eye contact and folded letters that demanded payment she couldn't make since her late husband's cattle had been sold off to cover debts, leaving the ranch a skeleton of its former self, and on the day the sky glowed like copper from the setting sun, Clara felt something inside her crack when old Mrs. Duncaster, the mayor's wife, marched right up to the porch with her stiff lace collar and sharper tongue, announcing that the town board had taken a vote and decided her boys would be better off with foster families who could provide a proper upbringing, which was a polished way of saying they wanted to scatter her family to the wind because they believed a widow's love wasn't enough. So Clara stood taller than she felt and politely but firmly told the woman to leave her land, though tears burned behind her eyes once the wagon wheels faded down the dusty road, and that night, sitting beside the dim lantern with her boys sleeping on a mattress patched with hope instead of feathers, Clara prayed aloud, not asking for riches or miracles, only that God send someone who wouldn't treat her like a burden, someone who would see her worth even in the dust and the calluses and the tired bones, and while she whispered that prayer into the dark, far away across the plains a cowboy named Cole Barrett sat by his campfire sipping black coffee, staring thoughtfully at the letter in his hand that told him his work with the cattle drive was finished and he was free to chase whatever future waited on the next horizon, though the quiet flicker of flames made him restless, because Cole wasn't a man built for drifting forever, his heart too stubborn to believe he was meant for loneliness even if life had tried to convince him otherwise, and when he folded that letter, saddled his horse Whiskey, and steered toward the glow of the town ahead, he had no idea that destiny was already waiting for him in the form of a widow who had nearly given up believing in heroes. While back at the ranch, Clara stepped outside to breathe the night air, forcing her fear down deep where her boys couldn't see it. Then a distant figure appeared riding through the moonlight, dust trailing like a ghost behind him, and her breath caught because strangers rarely had reason to come this far out, her heart pounding as the rider slowed near her porch and tipped his hat with a voice like sturdy oak, gentle yet strong, telling her he was looking for work and a place to stay a while if she happened to need a good hand, and something in his steady eyes made her lungs remember how to breathe again, though caution still fenced her heart, because hope had burned her before. Yet Samuel stepped forward protectively, demanding the cowboy's intentions, and Cole smiled with respect at the boy's courage, saying he didn't want charity or trouble, only a chance to prove himself, and Clara heard her late husband's whisper in the breeze, urging her to trust, to open one more door before the world boarded her incompletely, so she nodded slowly, offering a bed in the old bunkhouse and breakfast in exchange for honest work, unaware that this single choice would reshape all 4 of their lives. And when Cole was about to lead his horse toward the corral, little Joey peeked around Clara's skirt, wide-eyed like he'd just seen a fairy tale ride out of the dust, asking shyly if the cowboy would stay and keep the bad dreams away, and Cole knelt down to meet his gaze, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder while saying the words Clara didn't expect anyone to ever give them again. "You're home now." Morning sunlight leaked over the horizon like golden syrup pouring across the plains, warming the Murphy ranch with a gentle promise that maybe, just maybe, the storm clouds in their lives were starting to pull back, and Clara woke to the smell of coffee drifting through the open window, a smell she hadn't known since Will passed away, though now it mixed with the low hum of a man's voice singing a soft tune near the barn, and for a heartbeat her heart fluttered in confusion before remembering that a cowboy named Cole Barrett had arrived with moonlight and hope tucked in his saddlebag. And when she stepped outside barefoot in the dew-soaked grass, she slowed her breath while watching Cole already hard at work, rolling up sleeves and tackling chores with a quiet dedication as if the ranch belonged to him too, Samuel standing nearby pretending to supervise while secretly memorizing every skillful move the cowboy made, because the boy longed for a mentor even if his pride would rather bite its own tongue than admit it, and Matthew sat cross-legged beside an old broken fence rail, carefully observing how Cole repaired the hinges, eyes shining with admiration each time he used a tool in ways the boy didn't know yet, while little Joey followed the cowboy like a shadow with too much curiosity to stay still, asking questions faster than Cole could answer. though the cowboy never seemed bothered, chuckling and ruffling the child's hair as if he'd known the boy longer than a single night. And Clara watched all this with a swelling she hadn't felt in ages, a mixture of gratitude and fear stirring inside her ribs, because a stranger was stepping into roles she never asked him to fill, roles she'd been told she couldn't fill alone, and the thought of depending on someone again felt like a cliff too steep to trust, yet that same thought soothed her heart like a warm palm pressed to a cold cheek. Then behind the new peace lingering in the air, trouble began to stew far down the dusty road, trouble shaped like Harold Finch, the most prominent cattle owner in town and the very man who had once offered Clara a proposition after Will's funeral, a proposal of marriage that was less about love and more about acquiring her land, and when she refused him politely yet firmly, Harold's pride curdled into something venomous, turning him into a shadow that kept creeping around the edges of her life, and word had already reached his ears that a new man had arrived at Clara Murphy's ranch, stirring whispers about impropriety among the town's gossip hens, though gossip wasn't enough to satisfy Harold anymore because he hated the idea of anyone helping Clara keep what he believed should be his, especially not some cowboy with a strong back and an easy smile, and while Clara didn't yet know that Harold's jealousy had just been reignited like a fuse lit at both ends, Cole sensed something unsettled beneath the peaceful surface when he noticed Clara drifting into her thoughts, so he paused and tipped his hat toward her with that warm look in his eyes, telling her breakfast would taste better if she ate it sitting outside where the sunshine could chase away the cold memories, and she agreed with a shy nod. Letting herself sit on the porch step while the boys gathered around to eat fresh eggs and warm biscuits Cole somehow whipped up from the scant supplies in her kitchen, and Joey leaned against the cowboy as if his tiny bones finally found a safe place to rest, while Samuel pretended not to stare yet kept glancing at Cole as though checking whether heroes were real, and Clara exhaled slowly, feeling how strange it was to have laughter on the ranch again, though that peace shattered when hooves thundered up the road and a cloud of dust announced the arrival of Mrs. Duncaster accompanied by Harold Finch himself, both perched on a wagon like carrion birds judging the living, their faces twisted with disapproval as the mayor's wife called out to Clara, claiming the town had concerns about her new guest, and Harold stepped down with a rehearsed grin that didn't reach his eyes, tipping his hat as if every gesture hurt him, insisting he was simply there to check on her well-being while his glare at Cole carried the threat of a rattlesnake. Yet before Clara could respond, Cole rose to his full height and stood between her and the pair like a silent wall of courage, his voice steady but stern as he asked if they had business that required trespassing on private property so early in the morning, surprising everyone including Clara, who realized she had grown used to being spoken down to, but the cowboy wasn't having any of that, and in that moment, her heart trembled because someone finally stood with her instead of against her, while Samuel and Matthew tensed, ready to defend their mother too, and Joey grabbed Cole's pant leg, whispering, "Don't let them take us," which caused Harold's smirk to widen as he declared they would discuss the future welfare of her children with the town board soon, leaving his meaning sharp as spurs. Then with a crack of the reins the wagon spun away in a swirl of bitterness, and Clara's breath came fast from the shock of it all until Cole turned toward her with gentle certainty, placing one hand over his chest like he was making a solemn vow to the land itself, telling her that no one would break apart this family while he was still breathing, and Clara felt a tear slip down her cheek not from fear this time but relief, though she wiped it quickly before anyone noticed, because she wasn't used to being protected, yet Cole saw it anyway and offered a small smile that said she didn't have to pretend around him, and somewhere in the distance a hawk cried through the rising wind like the world itself was shifting, rearranging fate so that love, faith, and family might finally have a fighting chance in the wild stretch of Texas plains.